Oh, it's True Hoops special Friday little Zoom from quarantine show we call Bring It In on Friday. We feature the stylings of Jarod Hector. How are you, sir?
Good, Henry. How are you?
Good. David, you've been alone a lot this week. Are you doing okay?
Yeah, he has.
People keep calling me. I'm like, I'm just playing around. I'm fine. I'm 55. I can handle it. Yeah, but my wife is hoping to come home today, and I think we're going to visit my daughter maybe for a few minutes for a late lunch somewhere. So all is good, my man.
Wait, your wife's return, is it iffy? What's going on? Is everything okay?
She's flying standby because she flew. Her sister is a pilot, so she
Right.
flew standby. And you just got to wait and see if you can get on a plane. So we don't know.
Jarod, when David says he's totally fine, and we're insane to ask, doesn't that seem like what he'd say before the end? Like, doesn't that?
Yeah,
seem
right. Yeah, it's like you're not sure, and then he posts cryptic photos of like a wine bottle. I'm like, is that empty, coach?
I mean, I had popcorn for dinner last night.
You did. It's like I don't know where anything is.
There was no more leftovers, so I had popcorn. What am I going to tell you?
Popcorn is delicious. I'll give you that.
I have no complaints.
Yeah.
Popcorn and a bourbon, it worked out. Popcorn and scotch is what I had for the debate last night.
Oh my God.
It was just fine.
If you ever need to sell a country album, that's the title.
Yeah, well, as long as I include My Dog's Dead.
Yeah.
That's not part of any country song. Okay, here we go, John.
Okay, popcorn and scotch, go.
All right. So we've got 10 days left till an important day, right? Election day. I think everybody's here has voted. If not, they're going to very soon. There's an article that I read, and it's kind of following up on this Angela Davis thing. It also follows up on a wonderful piece that Henry's wife Jessica wrote in today's edition of TrueHoop. So make sure you guys check that out. We need to look at things a little bit differently, and it's all talking about reform, abolition, and all these words that get everybody fired up around prisons. And look, the bottom line is, and the article does a great job in pointing this out. I'm going to read this quote. Policing is intrinsically predatory and violent. Police push millions of people into the carceral state where racial disparity and other inequities rise through each circle of hell. Black people comprise 13% of the U.S. population, but roughly 30% of the arrested, 35% of the imprisoned, 42% of those on death row, and 56% of those living life sentences. Nearly half the people murdered by police have disabilities, and sexual violence is a routine but invisible form of police brutality, especially against the LGBTQ youth, sex workers, undocumented women, Black women, and people of color. In this unchecked violence, we see reforms appeal, but it's also second track because police look lawless. Reformers hope that new laws will rein in their power, but its premise is wrong. Policing is not the law's absence; it's the law's essence in a system of racial capitalism. And when we think about reform, that's why that word doesn't work. Abolition is what we're talking about, right? But abolition is a gradual thing. You don't wake up tomorrow and no prisons, no police. That's not how it works. It's a slow grind, but we eliminate these things. And then what happens is we look at how we police and how we look at those systems differently than how we see them right now. So just food for thought, folks.
Do you have more to add to that, Jarod?
A little bit more.
Please take my time.
So Hunter, thank you, Coach. Joe Biden, if he's elected, is going to commit another $300 million to community policing, which we know does not work. We've seen it. Again, reimagine the nation state. Reimagine a situation where you say, okay, what about violent crime? Ask the question, why is it that violent crime is highest in areas that are super poor? Maybe the poverty is the issue, right? Look at attacking root causes and not just throw these dudes in jail and lock away and unlock the key and forget about them, right? Attack the problems and not just worry about, all right, filling my jails and for-profit prisons and all these things that literally actually ultimately hurt the overall nation state, right? They don't actually help it. What they do is continue to keep that small few, the oligarchy, right, in charge. And Henry and I were talking about this earlier. If the people in charge want the system to continue on the way it is because it benefits them and the small few greatly, but it doesn't benefit us, the masses, right? So again, when you hear abolition of the police and abolition of prisons, don't freak out and say, oh, this is terrible. Stop and think. Well, what is it that you're going to do if you abolish those things? What are the different things you're going to attack and make better? And so I encourage everybody to read that article and think about that when and if Joe Biden gets elected, okay, hold him to account. Why do we think this is going to work? And what are some other things we can do to make this actually better?
That's a lot of money, $300 million. A lot of Americans could really use that money.
Got that right.
So I guess we're skipping.
Yeah, I'll do mine next.
I feel bad about that.
I'll do David 1 and second round. Don't worry about it.
Sorry, guys. No, I started out heavy.
All right, so this guy, David Barrett, is the CEO of Expensify, and he says anything less than a vote for Biden is a vote against democracy. And then he wrote a big, long thing that he sent to all of his clients about that. Just an unusual thing for a business to do, right? And then, Judy, do you mind showing the other link? Look at this, the Seattle Storm. Register to vote, vote early, vote by mail, vote on election day, vote Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So Tom Ziller's newsletter this morning, basically said, can you imagine an NBA team doing that? And, I'm sorry to all of you that I'm watching The Handmaid's Tale. It has fired me up about what are the stops between here and the absolutely devastating autocracy of The Handmaid's Tale, right? Which was a imagination, but a brilliant one, right? It uses political messaging that's familiar to us to create a nightmare. So to me, like, these are important things. Like that conscience is a factor, or Jarod's point about the things that benefit all of us. If you're doing nothing but advancing your career, you're never going to be the Expensify CEO who sends out a political message, because you might alienate Republicans buy sneakers too, right? But this is a little bit different time, and I think that they might be glad they did that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jarod.
Oh, I'm up again. Christ.
Number 2.
Yeah, we're so confused.
All Jarod all the time.
So sports ratings are in decline, and we've been talking about it, and it's always about the NBA and the NBA, why their numbers are down and all this stuff. And the reality is that numbers are down for sports viewing across the board. The only sport that saw an increase was the WNBA. Everybody else saw it, including the mighty NFL. But it's always the NBA that's the one that has to explain, well, it's because of your social justice missions and you're this and you're that. And Brett Favre asked a question on the town hall to Donald Trump about, do you think that sports fans are turning away from football and basketball because of the political messaging? And that just isn't true. Folks, we are in the middle of a pandemic. The article that Judy had up previously talked about total viewership is relatively even, right? It's the same. The problem is the calendar's screwed up, right? Things that we normally watch in April, May, and June, we were watching in July, August, September, and October. Not to mention we have a massive national election going on. And there are things that are distracting the time away. But the total people watching sports, same. We're just now having to watch 75 sports in a truncated period. So certain things are getting the short end of the stick. And the people who make the argument that, well, it's because of the NBA and their messaging, those are people who don't watch the NBA anyway, right? Let's just be frank about that. The NBA, look, can they do better in terms of ratings? Sure, every league could. But that, I think, is more of a function of what Henry often talks about, which is just the changing demographic of how we consume media now than it is too many Black Lives Matter messages.
It's ironic that people, hold on, Judy, hold on. Quick comment.
No, I don't know. We're not supposed to have interim comments in 90. I'm
just
on
going
the
to
legal
say
team.
it's ironic that people say they don't want to watch sports because of politics, and that means they won't watch the sports because of politics.
Right.
It's an interesting irony to it.
Exactly.
We will talk more about that. Thank you, Jarod. Jarod mentioned WNBA finals ratings were up 15%. There's a little tweet about that Judy will show us in a second. So I have a little, so these see way down at the bottom there. Look, everybody's down as Jarod described, but then there's this 2 PGA events, which I cannot describe. And I have no theories about that. But the WNBA, a little alarm bell went off for me. Since this period, our lives have changed so that now we are all locked in a struggle against death, whether at the hands of a virus or the police. This is what's on our mind. This is what animates us. A lot of this stuff, the Stanley Cup final, feels really stupid, right? It just doesn't matter. It doesn't rank. Like, you're getting a text from someone who's dying while you're supposed to be paying attention to this. Like, that's a problem. The WNBA has a little bit of a thing, which is a little exception, right? Like, when I was in the early days of having a blog and looking at what worked on the internet, one of the things, there was a theory going around with some data behind it, that a higher holy calling was the secret to a digital media property that would break through. You couldn't just be content. You had to stand for something. The WNBA is kind of alone in this list. Like, it feels like you're in the struggle with them when you watch that sport, right? It feels like it's part of a bigger thing. And maybe it feels like it matters. Whereas it's really like, it's very hard to make a case for the Preakness, right? I'm like, just cancel it. I don't care. But this thing, like what Sue Bird's up to, it was big before the league went back in the bubble. It's big in the bubble. Anyway, Dun, 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 dun.
So Judy, I don't know why, Henry, you wanted to go second and not third today, but is it? I guess
just
I'm
cut in line. I get. No, it's because
so
I made the document wrong.
I'm going to do number one, Judy. Okay. You keep doing the full screen. I have to get back because I'm going to read it. So Stan Van Gundy got hired by the Pelicans, and Hoops Hype interviewed a bunch of executives and coaches, whatever. And one quote is, so a quote from the story is, "It doesn't move the needle for me," one Western Conference assistant coach told Hoops Hype. "I didn't think Stan would get another job. I know they want structure and accountability, but a 61-year-old non-former player connecting with a 20-year-old Zion, 22-year-old Lonzo Ball, and 23-year-old Brandon Ingram wouldn't exactly be my move. Thought that they'd push harder for Jason Kidd personally." And then the Hoops Hype writer says, "Both Van Gundy and Tom Thibodeau are considered old school coaches who practice hard and demand discipline and accountability from their players," as if those are bad things, structure and accountability and demanding discipline. And also as if only guys that used to play the game can get that. It really bothers me, especially as it relates to we're trying to get more black coaches to get in the business and run teams. They don't have to have played in the NBA. I've done this a couple of times before. There's very few of those guys in the country, if not the world, and a whole lot more that are coaching high school and college right now that would be great NBA coaches. They didn't play in the NBA or college. And so if you want to cast a net as wide as possible for the most talent, stop only looking at those guys that played first. I don't care what the color of their skin is, and we'll be better off for it. Our players will be better. I'm 55. These young guys still listen to me, and I didn't play in the NBA either.
Stan has an iconic picture cover of a rap album, so he's good to go.
That's how that works.
He's good to go. Coach, I'm going to cede my number 3 because we can talk about that later, and you can go and do number 2.
Look at that. We're a great team. We're a great team. So I read a really interesting article in the Harvard Business Review. I'm going to read it directly from the article. AI fairness isn't just an ethical issue is the name of the article. It says, this is grabbing a few different quotes. In 2018, Amazon's recruiting algorithm was flagged for penalizing applications that contain the word women's, quote, quote, women's. More recently, Apple's credit card algorithm was so biased against women that founder Steve Wozniak's wife was given a credit card limit 10 times lower than his, despite them sharing all assets and accounts. Researchers led by AI pioneer Judea Pearl are working to mitigate this type of bias through developing causal AI techniques. But for now, at least, our systems are rife with algorithmic bias. Unless there is concerted intervention, algorithms will continue to reflect and reinforce the prejudices that hold society and businesses back. For example, developers should no longer be able to simply insert open source code into systems without knowing what's in it, and software firms should be no longer able to use the concept of proprietary algorithms to obfuscate scrutiny of shoddy code design. We can preempt some of the damage by utilizing ethical AI design principles. We also need to ensure that our algorithms are explainable, auditable, and transparent. Just as we wouldn't accept humans making major decisions that affect others without any oversight or accountability, we should not accept from algorithms. That's better than anything I could say. It's great to know that at least some tech geeks are thinking big picture that way. We need to, because if the article goes on to pretty good detail about all sorts of biases going on, not just against women.
Okay, so just for fun, Dave, why don't you do your third one now, and then I'll do the last one, and then we'll be done, right? Just do a 3 in a row. Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Let's need some water or some popcorn or whiskey.
I'm all right. Okay, so basically, this is a very important day for me in my life. 23 years ago today, October 23rd, 1987, I went on my last first date with my now wife to a place called John's Pass and their seafood festival. And we walked around and we held hands and I kissed her once, and then she wanted me to take her home because it was cold by the beach. Because all of us who grew up here always have a blanket in the back of our car. Yeah. We laid on the beach at night, and she was cold. We went home. But she liked me enough to continue to go out with me. And I say this for a reason. I do agree with what Joe Biden said last night. I think we've got a very dark winter coming. We never know what day is coming that's going to change our world. We need to be optimistic. We need to have some hope. I promise you, at best, I was a barely handsome 22-year-old who got a very attractive and bright 19-year-old to go out with me on a date, having no clue she'd be interested in me beyond that one date. And now we've got 2 amazing kids and a great life together. Whether it's business, whether it's personal, As we go through these next couple of months, and it's going to be a crazy November 3rd, and I don't think it's going to get better after that because of COVID and all the other things that's impacting. We need to have some optimism and believe that any one day in our lives can be a difference maker. They don't have to be all Groundhog Days. Let's believe in ourselves and believe in each other and give luck a chance to happen.
Woohoo. Okay. I was going to talk about Adam Grant, noted researcher, shared this tweet, which, look at this. The early data, COVID fatality rates were lower in countries with female leaders and states with female governors. Women announced lockdowns earlier and more successfully. They expressed more awareness of people's fears, concern for their pain, and confidence in their plans. I think a place where I'm a weirdo and often find myself looking at faces going like, what are you talking about? I was like, I'm just a fan of a well-run system, right? So to me, the question of what should you do is best answered by what tends to work, right? And rather than like what feels right or what tools do you have, it's like, no, let's look around. Who's succeeding? How does what's upstream from success, right? And I think there's two examples of this on the screen right now. One is, oh, look who was leading. Two is, I think if you were to pull apart what really did happen, it's those leaders asking the same question, right? It's like this mask thing isn't because they love masks or aren't macho or whatever. It's because they were able to accept the data, right? And adjust to it. And just be like, okay, back in February, it might've been anything. They could have told us it was orange juice and we would, but who can just pivot with the data? Like the answer is not macho men, right? Like, and a little theory there is, I think it's because macho men are used to their feelings being central, right? Like Donald Trump thinks it cares how he feels about masks. Like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter to the population. It's just not a factor. Anyway, there you go.
I like it. All right, what are we going to first, guys?
We got lots to talk about today.
Do you want to talk about? Actually, we have so many topics. Did you read this? Do you know what I'm talking? So this
Read that.
Athletic.
Ibram Kendi. No, this is the Atlantic, and then he had this is this amazing. Hold on. I couldn't quite figure out how to do it in 9x90, but this is okay. So this dude has cancer.
He sure does.
And he went through he tells beautifully the story of like, he had some symptoms, he's getting checked out. He knew he didn't have cancer. And then when he maybe did, they're like, oh, it's definitely stage 1. And they tell him it's stage 4. And he sort of diagnoses his own mental processes here and compares it to America and racism, right? In America, just incredible things and obvious signs of cancer, right? In America. And we have had generally disability white people to say like, well, probably not, or we dealt with that, or yay, slavery's over. And but he's asking the question of, should Joe Biden win? Barack Obama's the vice president. Do we go back to feeling like everything's okay? Mm-hmm. Or is this the like demand change now moment that it feels like? It struck me as like, we want to read that story. That's it.
Definitely want to read that in his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, right? Like he sort of kind of runs through that in parallel with like the history of the country and like his own, educational and racial awakening. And then the cancer specter is always looming over because he wrote all those books like Stamped from the beginning and while going through all this. And it's like incredible. And it's this weird thing, right? Where I feel like because stage 4 essentially means almost certain death, right? Like that's kind of where you are with that. How that gives you a different level of, and appreciation is not the right word, but perspective on what's going on and why things are the way they are. And the clarity of vision and focus that he has with the work he's doing now because of that type of cancer diagnosis, I think is what makes him so good and empathetic for this time.
And it makes you end a story. The abolition of slavery seemed as impossible in the 1850s as equality seems today. But just as the abolitionists of the 1850s demanded the immediate eradication of slavery, immediate equality must be the demand today. Abolish police violence, abolish mass incarceration, abolish the racial wealth gap and the gap in school funding, abolish barriers to citizenship, abolish voter suppression, abolish health disparities, not in 20 years, not in 10 years, now.
So I posted that thing. We talked about it on the AI's bias.
Yeah.
The AI is created by humans. And this is really what this was the Trojan horse in a way to get into. If it's if obvious in AI, how are we missing it in the real world? Like, how is there an argument that there isn't systemic racism in the real world when it's very obvious through what we're creating? Like we can't. And so I didn't know what you were going to talk about. I haven't read The Atlantic yet. End denial. There still are those that do. In fact, and you guys didn't watch the debate maybe last night. You did. Okay. I feel like I don't care if it's Biden or not, but the Republican side are denying that exists. And it's like denying that we smell through our noses and hear through our ears. It's that overt. And I just, that to me is where we should be pinpointing our questions, not just as journalists. The moderator's got a lot to do and she was fine, but this is where I wish Biden would be more targeted on that front. Because if we're talking about uniting as a people, it has to start with that, in my opinion.
There's also there's a little bit of the wealth gap is big now, right? There's some very, very powerful people.
Biggest ever.
This AI movement is coming from Silicon Valley,
right?
Where we've had this sort of decade of awakening where we thought it was like, oh, finally we get to just have like more meritocracy and smarter ideas get to reign, and suddenly we're like, oh, it's just a bunch of douchebags. Like I didn't know. Like it took a while, but I had my personal awakening when I was out there, and I don't think someone might be telling you this, but like we watched a parade of speakers who were a mix of like good and bad, but definitely like a lot of white men who were really sure of themselves, telling everybody their business. And then there's a little like lunch buffet. I was just meeting our favorite person, Dana Smith, in this 10 minutes, and she lived out there then. And I was like, wait, like, is Silicon Valley just like a bunch of know-it-all bros who are like leading us astray? And she was like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I didn't know. Like, but to me, this is why it's in the code of AI, right?
Right, of course.
It's hard. It's not in code,
right?
Like, there isn't a test the Wozniak family can go through outside of AI, right? There's not data that's easily retrieved, right? But it's in the code, so now it's black and white. Now it's like noticeable, right?
And in the article, I only read one passage because we have 90 seconds. Legal won't let me go farther, but if she would, there is plenty of issues regarding race relations too. Like it's not just, of course, terrible against women. Yeah, these are things that exist, and
everywhere they look for it. Yeah,
no,
yeah. So at least they're aware of it.
I say it all the time, right? Wozniak, Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey. All these are the 21st century robber barons, right? They are John Rockefeller, Cornelius. They're the same dudes, just look a little different, and they dress it up in that doing well to do good bullshit that they like to spew out there in Silicon Valley. Because again, I used to live and work out there. That's not it. They're the new and different type of oligarchy, right? Which looks like we're an oligarchy that actually cares about people. They actually really don't, right? That's the reality of it. And when you look at back to that, my first point on 9x90, and again, this is why it's so important for us to hold politicians to account. The money that was funded through police reform to give them body cam footage, right? Because that was going to solve the problem so we can see stuff. A, clearly didn't solve a problem. Two, what was it then used for? So the police with body cams can now spy on the protesters for Black Lives Matter and use that footage against them, right? So these things never help the masses, right? That's not what they do. All they do is continue to fund and prop up and remake and reform the existing system, which is why abolish are the key words, and why Angela Davis, and I put that in that 9x90 last week. She's like, I didn't think I'd ever live long enough to live to hear the word abolish, please, be a real thing. Because when you dismantle and take apart that system is when you have an opportunity to change for the better.
I've always wondered about this, like, bummer for us that we have cameras on lampposts everywhere, right? It isn't often used to make your life better, right? But there is like there's sort of a utopian vision that I guess they have in Singapore where, like, they can't imagine why women in America wouldn't walk home alone late at night, right? Because in Singapore, there's no crime because the cameras everywhere. Any crime you commit. So I guess I could, sell me on that if you want to try. I probably won't go for it, but I'll listen, right? But here's the thing that gets me is like, if the police start swinging batons at protesters, can we get that footage? Does anybody care about using it in that direction? Like, why is that not? If we're using our tax dollars to put those cameras there, can I have the footage, please? Like, it's amazing to me that we don't have that.
And there's something that needs to be said, and I can't say the word, but you'll know what I'm meaning in a minute. Here's the bottom line problem. Richard Pryor talked about this in the 80s.
Okay, here we go.
In the 80s. In the 80s, he tells a story about what happens in Long Beach. And his joke is, the punchline is, can you break N-word? And then he pretends to be the white cop. Oh, yep, you can do it, right? Or you can break a so-and-so, right? So all we know now for sure is that with those body camera footage and with other footage that we've seen, like Rodney King's, you can beat up a black person, right? You can do it legally. We're watching it happen. So until that no longer is allowed, what else matters? Right now, you can legally do those things and you can kill them. Okay.
And that is the point.
So until we change that and legislate that, and that's the other point I wanted to make. There's lots of talk about the Supreme Court justice going on. She'll be approved next week, whatever. Does Biden need to pack the court? I've read some really interesting articles about, well, we just need to make a whole bunch of better laws. And then there's nothing they can do about it. Someone's got to sue for being unconstitutional. That's going to be hard to say it's unconstitutional if they're really well-written laws, which is a challenge, where you can't break a black person or kill them, right? Yeah. That's what we need to do. So that's part of the voting process too. And if we don't pack the court, pack the house and get these laws passed where you can't do these things to people, whether you have it on video or not.
Well said, Coach. It's the law. That's the issue, is that you can legally do all these things. So it doesn't matter about body cams or none of that matters. Legally, you can do all these things. So
it's allowed.
I'll say one other thing. Look, I'm willing to get depressed too, right? But for the record, like, things have progressed. More brutal police officers have lost their jobs. Some have been charged with things, right? Like, it's terribly short of our goal. But I do think it just for our own psychology in living this, like, it's yeah, there you go, Caleb. I hear you. But I think that, like, you want to acknowledge where there has been a little scintilla of progress. Not that my buddy Ibram Kennedy's going to go with this, but I think just for you, right? I think it's like, there is some progress. And the other thing I was going to say has totally escaped me. So let's move on. Wait,
we do want to talk about the draft.
We do.
Jarod did some work about that.
Let's take a little basketball break for a second. Judy, can you show that video from Twitter, Judy?
Yeah.
I want to watch David watch the video. This is what I think this will be fun.
This is the 16-year-old kid from France.
Yeah. If you don't mind.
It looks like
Victor Wembanyama.
He does. He's really skinny.
He's 16.
Yeah. Wow. This 16-year-old from France.
That's Rudy Gobert.
Matched up with Rudy Gobert, and they're eyeball to eyeball. The kid's got handle. He's got a beautiful little 18-foot jump shot.
I like the form, Coach.
Yeah. A little fadeaway Dirk off the board from 18 feet. Pretty good. By the way, the other guys in the court aren't small either.
No.
That's a young kid here with the ball.
Watch this.
Boop. Yeah. Not starting to dunk the ball. Yeah. James Weitzman standing reach, I read, like 9'6". This kid's probably got about the same.
Oh, did he just block Rudy Gobert?
He blocked Rudy. Yeah. Rudy Gobert looks like he's stronger. Yeah. This is good. This is France. I mean, they beat Team USA this summer, last summer, and they might do it again in 5 or 6 years, well, maybe 8 or 9 years for this kid. But he's I don't know who he plays for. Do you know, Henry? What he's with?
Looks like a green team.
That's true. He does. I promise you, he's with one of their top. I'm trying to think which green team is the French team.
Henry.
I don't know. No. Come on. This is a draft workout. I'm pretty sure, right? This has got to be. No, it can't be.
No, it's not a draft. He's 16 years old.
What we're looking at.
Yeah, they're just filming something. Look at Rudy with through the legs and a dunk. Wow,
Coach,
Rudy, you're dunking on a teenager.
When I watch tall guys like this kid, who's 7'2", it's like I like to look at their movement, right? Just because, like, when you're that big, it's so hard to be like coordinated and fluid. But it looks pretty fluid in the small stuff we're seeing.
And well, what I just liked is he doesn't like that Rudy is scoring on him at will. That's a good sign. Like he's got some pride, right?
I like that by the time he's 20, he will be multiple years into working on his handle and stuff, right? Like,
oh, he already is multiple years in.
Right, but I'm
He's
saying
got
this is
decent
like
handles now. Yeah,
like this is how you become Anthony Davis, right?
This is where the game is going. Yeah, like I was telling earlier, I did a show in Israel this morning about what the league's gonna look like in 2040. 2040, I said just a whole bunch of Anthony Davis is running around.
Yeah,
it's not great for my grandchildren probably, unless my kids marry someone really tall. But it's gonna be a whole lot of very tall, athletic, skilled basketball players.
Judy, do you want to say that dude's name?
Put it up there. Victor, was it?
Victor.
No, I don't.
You can't get one over on legal no matter how early you ask her.
Wembanyama. Well,
Wembanyama.
It's funny that we started there and that kid's 16 because I was looking back at the last 10 years of the number one player coming out of high school and then where they were drafted overall. So these are all the number one players in the U.S. in their high school class and then where they were next drafted. Avery Bradley was the number one player in 2009, drafted 19 overall. Harrison Barnes in 2010, drafted 7 overall. Anthony Davis, number 1. Nerlens Noel, number 6. Andrew Wiggins, number 1. Jahlil Okafor, number 3. Ben Simmons, number 1. Harry Giles, number 20. He had an injury, as did Avery Bradley. Marvin Bagley III, number 2 overall. And the next 2 guys were number 1 in their class. James Wiseman was number 1, 19. He'll be in this draft. Jalen Green was the number 1 high school player in 2020. He will likely be in next year's draft. He's in the select league right now in the G League.
Right.
And I looked at a lot of the mock drafts that are out right now. And in the top 10, there are only 2 players that are 20 and older. Tyrese Halliburton from Iowa State and Obi Toppin from Dayton. Halliburton's 20, Toppin's 22. Everybody else is 19 or 18 years old. And to me, it's just so fascinating looking at the draft and evaluating talent, right? Because these guys, these GMs and people who are, because this is the part about the draft that I always find so interesting and just about the NBA in general, right? Like your jobs depend on the whims of 18 and 19-year-olds and how well they develop and how good your program is. And that's kind of scary in some respects, right? Because if I didn't think about making decisions now in the adult based on what 18-year-old me was doing, it's like, holy shit, like, I don't know what to tell you. You're not going to do so well, right? Because but it's fascinating, right? Because who knows who any of these guys are going to be any good. And look at the names I just ran off. Anthony Davis, we know for sure, superstar. What other superstars on that list? Ben Simmons, maybe. I mean, the rest, like
Simmons, yes. Well, you could wash out for size. The only guy, I mean, I think Noel had some bad luck with where he went and
an injury.
And Okafor, and the injury, of course, and Okafor has a weight issue. Bagley is crazy talented. He got hurt this year, which is a big factor looking at these tall guys. They tend to put on weight, and it's really bad for the skeletons, I think. That's Yao Ming. There's Greg Oden, Henry. I've talked about this for a long time. It's a little bit of luck. And also, I would say this. I don't think talent evaluators are any fucking good anyway. Right? Like this is part of the issue is I don't think these scouts know a goddamn thing. I really don't. Their job is to evaluate how good the player is in high school. And so to think that projects necessarily to the NBA is silly. Clearly those guys made the league, right? They have those requisite skills to pick a guy to say he'll make the league. But it's really circumstance, fortune, right? These injuries really do, Harry Giles is super talented.
Yes.
And then your job is to discern, like, for example, in Okafor's case, he was a big man destroying boys in high school. He just was.
All these people were.
Yeah, right. I know. Tyreek Evans was a monster. Remember OJ Mayo?
Yeah.
Right.
We were just talking
OJ
about
was before 2009, I would guess.
Yeah. He was.
He was just a man among boys.
Yeah.
And that advantage is mitigated as other people.
Bill Walker. Remember Bill Walker?
Bill Walker.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot. So
He was hurt,
so
right?
you just have that strength, and other people get stronger as their body develops later. I don't think our franchise do a great job of building the best systems to develop, but I also say that at the number one position, when you're a guy at that rank number one, you clearly have some athletic gifts. You're not going to get number one. But I think teams are your point, Jarod, on all but two are under 20. I think teams are stupid. Duncan Robinson right now wouldn't get drafted. I'm going to rephrase that. Duncan Robinson this summer would not have been drafted. This last summer, right? Mm-hmm. But now that we've seen him, he'd be drafted 4. Like, who doesn't need that dude? Mm-hmm. Well, he was that guy at Michigan. Mm-hmm. I can't help it. His coach didn't realize it. But when you saw him in the G League, you should have known it a little ahead of time. That's why I'm not so excited that Miami discovered him. Miami cultivated pretty good. But there's guys out there that just being missed all the time because they don't dunk as good as someone else, or maybe they're not as fast as someone. But shooting matters. Shooting matters. Steph Curry didn't go number one for that reason. He was a skinny kid.
So, Coach, do you, in your estimation, and this will get us into a larger point too, are talent evaluators bad because they're bad at basketball, understanding basketball, or do they overvalue things like athleticism?
So, I love athleticism. I don't want to steer away from that, but I think, well, first of all, these guys are evaluating talent and they're projecting for college, not the NBA. I don't think they're great at that either, by the way, for projecting for college. It's not hard to figure out Harrison Barnes is pretty damn good. I mean, I saw these guys when they were that age. I don't think they really understand the game. My opinion is I don't think they really understand the nuances involved, the context involved with the need to improve. Scouts tend not to always know the answers. I've always told young executives, you don't need to go watch these players too often in person. You need to hire private investigators. I mean, really, what kind of, and I don't mean for illicit stuff. Just, do they get up at 6 a.m. to go to the gym? Right? How do they treat their teammates in the locker room? Right? Are they working out at night? Do they like the game? Even if they're not watching the game, no teenagers watch the game anymore. They really don't. Are they watching highlights? Are they playing NBA 2K? That's a good sign. Like, they need to love basketball. It's a freaking hard sport. And so you need to know that on the court, you'll see how good they are. And then you can look at their numbers. So if they're not productive, but they love the game and you look like you're going to have some talent, well, why aren't they productive? If you think you can work that out, like I on some of these prospects, I won't mention their names now, but I'm looking at these talent evaluators for the NBA, these media people who are doing weaknesses. Weaknesses are always needs to add strength, needs to tighten their handle, needs to understand the game better. Well, yeah, they're teenagers playing high school basketball. Of course they need those things. The question is, can they solve those problems? Right. And if the answer is you're not sure, that's the problem, huh? How likely?
How likely are they to?
Right.
Yeah.
And what does it take? Right. When I am trying to help players pick colleges, I'll talk to a high school coach and I'll say, how does he deal with yelling? And this happened a couple years ago, and you'll laugh at the results of this. Wichita State was going to recruit a player I was involved with. I was fine with that, but never would I think the player would go to Wichita State because their coach is a madman. And if you played for me and like how I coach, which is I would brand myself as the opposite of Greg Marshall, although I am certainly tough, but you'll never fear that I'm
and scotch, coach.
Right. You're never going to fear I'm going to punch you. I'm never going to embarrass you ever. So I knew my guy would never go play for Greg Marshall, but I didn't mind if Wichita State would recruit him because then I could get other people involved that was in their league, right? That's how the game works. You have to factor that in too. And some guys might love Greg Marshall. He did a good job with Fred VanVleet. That's not to say Fred wouldn't have done great for a sweeter coach. Brad Stevens should be fine with.
So Fred VanVleet's a perfect example. I've been thinking about, as you're talking, the Malcolm Gladwell book Outliers, which touched off a giant debate with David Epstein and the 10,000 hour rule. And it's all very interesting. And, but I think no one would disagree that I think I'm right that book opens with David and Goliath.
Yep.
And
correct.
Or that David and Goliath, the book David and Goliath.
Wait, is that not Outliers then?
That's David and Goliath.
Okay. So
yeah.
In terms of these scouts, I think basically, okay, here are two people who's going to win the fight. Like, I think scouts mostly are like the big fucker.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like because there's no imagining that has to happen. You just look, right? Like, I think that Gladwell story ends up with David has really good eyesight and the Giants.
He's been training with slingshots to kill lions.
Right. So, Okay, so this is where I'm going to depart that analogy. And so the question is like, how likely is David to be better, like 1% better, 2% better next year, and the year after that, and the year after that? So if you're good because you're just crushing people when you're 17, which is how everybody gets to the NBA, basically, right? All these Duncan Robinsons Dave's talking about are just people who peaked later, right? Like,
Right.
but of course, all we want to know is who's likely to peak later, which is really like, how hard are you going to work? Are you a good teammate? Do you have a character that people like having around even when you're not playing, and on, right? Like, will you add skills? The answer for most players is no, right? But if the answer is yes, then okay, now you have a chance to go from unrecruited, unregarded to amazing. And that's where I think David just gets so upset, because David has lucidity on that process. This is what he thinks about. And most of the league is like, oh, that doesn't happen. Players don't change. Like, players don't change. And like, I feel like it breaks your heart every year. Every year, the league's like, we'll just take what they've done up to this point and go with that. And he's like,
Right.
what the fuck?
It's funny you say that. I've sent this to Henry, a screenshot. Oh, maybe, I don't know if it was 2 years ago. I got a screenshot from some guy on Twitter, and the screenshot was of my tweet after Giannis played his third game in the NBA, and maybe it was preseason,
Right.
maybe regular season, I don't know.
Yeah.
And basically, I said part Nick Batum, part Kevin Durant, because he was really, really skinny then, and part who was the third one? Paul George. I said basically, hey, Milwaukee fans, you got yourself a max player here in 3 years. What I wrote, and never thought about it again. To me, it's the most obvious thing in the world. This guy who was playing in the smallest leagues in Greece was on an NBA court and looking okay. He wasn't good, but I mean, the average Greek or American or whatever would be freaking terrible in the NBA. And of course he's going, I didn't know if his body could handle what it handled, but he was going to get stronger. And he wasn't afraid to shoot and drive and attack. In fact, shot more threes then than he does now. And this guy was giving me credit for seeing it. And I just thought, you had to be blind. I didn't know him coming out of Greece, but watching 3 games was all it took to see. But this guy is extraordinarily gifted. How did and Messiah has told me he was doing everything he could to trade up. And he said, that's why he told me. That's why I reached for Bruno Caboclo. I was so heartbroken that I couldn't get up high enough to get Giannis that I did the next best thing and got another super crazy long guy. And Toronto's got a great system, and they just couldn't really develop him enough, obviously. There's other factors, again, loving the game, being competitive. I can't stress that enough. That's why I love watching that video you just showed. What I saw, I mean, what Jarod said was right. He moved beautifully and shot the ball nicely. But I saw exasperation when Gobert scored on him. What right does he have to think Gobert shouldn't score on him? Guys shoot 60% in the NBA. He's playing some kid without any other help. There were 2-on-2. Of course, Gobert is going to score, but he was upset. That, to me, bing, bing, watch this kid. Because if he's going to push himself like that, as long as he can deal with failure, okay, which is a whole nother thing, yeah, he's going to be a special player.
What would you say his name is again, David?
It was Victor. All I know is Victor. I call him Victor. You can call him whatever you want. I'm calling him Victor.
Wembanyama.
I didn't see his last name. I just saw his first name.
Wembanyama.
Do we know his history at all?
I just saw a tweet, man. That's all I got.
All right. I think that, and this is something Gladwell's written about. This is the culture we talk about. For our listeners listening to this now, this is the topic Henry and I have been talking about since we started TrueHoop, is building the right culture. The fact that Jarod and I took turns with, I mean, it's not a big deal, but you know what? Not everyone would do that. I get enough.
I didn't say
enough. You are Mr. TrueHoop. We're on enough we don't feel like we have to carve our space. But I would tell you, in a lot of NBA places, coaches are cutthroat with each other. It is I remember watching Bill Laimbeer working for Kurt Rambis. And Kurt was doing something. I was right behind. It was in the end zone media center, and it was at Minnesota, so we were right by the home bench. And Kurt Rambis is diagramming something up. It was probably terrible because he was not a good coach. And Laimbeer was standing up, with the most dismissive, terrible grin I've ever seen. It's absolutely fair to say that maybe he was reacting to a joke someone said to him. But I thought he was looking at what Rambis was drawing up and just thinking, "You motherfucker are so stupid." And I was sad. Yeah. Like this is a really, you have to stay in your lane. If you're the second assistant, you better not do more than the first assistant or you're in trouble. And this is not a good culture. The teams that have gotten past that are the much better franchises.
Henry, and Coach, I love that you went there because I was thinking about this from a larger perspective. Same as Findiari, who's like a Warriors, like he does Warriors Outsiders with Andy Liu, like big NBA guy. He looked at a tweet thread going based on an MJ comment that Jordan made about, all these guys keep joining up and forming super teams. There's only going to be 2 teams in the league that are good, and the other 28 are going to be shitty. I mean,
you got the old this you, right?
Right. And I want to be like, well, maybe if you were a little bit better at your job, the Hornets might be better, but whatever. Be that as it may. I do wonder, again, when we think about rethinking the league, if we got rid of things like max contracts and stuff like that, would that help the talent disparity? Like, the breakup where you have more talent everywhere and more teams that are legitimately have a chance. I mean, I think when we came into this season before the pandemic, there were 8 teams that had a legitimate shot of saying we could go to the conference finals and then potentially the NBA finals, maybe 4 teams that are a really good shot. But, sometimes things don't work out your way, whatever, injury, luck, team has LeBron, whatever, like you're not going to get there. But can the league be reimagined where there is the apparent of more parity, even though parity is not a realistic goal, right? Can fan bases in 10, 12 markets say, okay, we got a legit shot. If things break right, we can maybe make a run into this conference semis. If we get real lucky, conference finals. And how much of that is about the structure of the teams and the franchises themselves and actually being competent at their jobs and good vis-a-vis what Coach was saying, people backbiting and it's so competitive. Okay, I want to get this job and undermining the franchise from within. That was a lot, I know.
I feel like it's a great question. And if you just forget basketball for a second, take David's example and say this is a Wall Street firm, or right, where like nobody trusts anybody, everybody rolls their eyes at each other, like they're just gonna get their ass handed to them. Like this, they will be punished in the marketplace quickly for this approach, right? It's just how life is. Like that's just the market speaks that way. It's not to say that the market is perfectly ethical and all that, but it does. If you just can't get things done, if you have a lot of employees who are contributing no value, like that hurts, right? So the NBA doesn't have that pressure. It's not felt very clearly, right? One example of that would be how many, like the degree to which the coaches we have now are the coaches we've always had, right? There are roughly 45 NBA coaches and 15 of them are unemployed at any given time, right? And there are some exceptions to this, like, but that's not a meritocracy. This is not real competition, right? Like these are not there's no way these are the 45 best coaches in the world because there's no way in, right? Like if somebody's amazing in Greece, like if someone's the Giannis of coaching right now, there's no draft. There's no way in. So to me, I'm like, I think we would be wise to put pressure. I'm picking on coaches, but I really mean it about GMs, presidents, and owners. I think that's really where we're falling down the job. You do want a system. There's nothing you can do. If you are a fan of a poorly run team, there's nothing for you. Like your team will only get good when your team is well run, and you need somebody to get improved or fired. And if they're not feeling the pressure to improve, that's not going to happen.
I think Henry stated it really, really well. But except he got one thing wrong, and you're going to laugh when I tell you, there is a way in for a coach from Greece, but you have to start out making $1,000 a year in the G League, right? As a video guy, and then 10 years later, maybe. I'm joking.
Right? No,
right?
right.
That's
right.
That, I'm joking, but not really, right? That's the only way in is to get lucky enough to someone brings you in for nothing, and you work your way up the system.
So let's say there's no door. That's climbing through like the downspout.
Yeah, right. It's sneaking in.
There's no door.
It's sneaking through a small window and sucking your gut in, whatever, and getting cut on the way. Jarod, so let's answer your question though. So right now, okay, we got Lakers, Miami, Clippers, Bucks, Nuggets, Celtics, Toronto at 7, right? I would argue Utah took the Nuggets to 7 games without their 20-point per game scorer, Bojan Bogdanovic, right? Right. There's 8. So we're almost at 10, right? The Pacers were very good. And if Oladipo doesn't get hurt, and maybe you trade Miles Turner with Sabonis, and you can guess Miles Turner is good. He's a good player. He'd start for a lot of, 20 teams he'd start at. You add a more important fitting piece for what you have, that'd be another team. Yeah, I think there's enough talent in the league for 20 teams to be able to compete for a Final Eight. I'm confident somebody's free side. There's enough talent. I think there's just only about 5 or 6 good franchises. Yeah. So I think Henry's exactly right. I think that, and I absolutely agree on the coaching and the executive side. And now I'll go a step further, and I'm gonna go right back to Henry's bailiwick. It's on the owners. If the owners would establish the right culture with management that then conjoined or partnered with the coaches, you would have a much, much better company, which is what this is. These are companies, right? And with those better companies, what would happen? You would have more Duncan Robinsons, right? You would have a 20-year-old rookie, and we're talking, I'm going to write an article maybe next week about who I think the Warriors should draft. You'll have a 20-year-old rookie who by end of the season isn't a rookie anymore and can help you win. And maybe Tyler Hero won't be the youngest rookie ever to start an NBA Finals. It's not easy. It's not easy. Partly because if you're good, you have a veteran in front of you and you're a backup, that's fine. But more can produce if we create the right environment. I've said this once before. I did a speech at the St. Regis in Atlanta to like 250 CEOs of companies. And one of the people that put it on was a big accounting firm, one of the bigger 5 or 6 or 7, top 10 in the world, offices all over the world. But he told me they're based in Atlanta. He said, our secret is we hire Georgia Tech accounting grads who are not stupid, and we turn them into Harvard productive employees, because the Harvard grad's going to ask for double the salary. And so our firm specialized in getting them from Georgia Tech. He was just making up a name, but I'm sure he's not totally wrong. He's in Atlanta, and turning them into the same exact product. That's why they asked me to speak. That goes into development, right? And our teams just suck at that. And you can't just hire a player development guy. There's a process that has to be in place. Royal jelly should be a term they understand, right? I doubt, and it's not just from bees. And I don't think most of these teams get it. But I think the smart ones will. And just like Daryl Morey is now reproduced in all 30 teams, more or less, so too will the development process of what Miami did with Duncan. Everyone should be scouting for 6'8" guys that can really shoot and are willing to fight, because you got to be competitive. And that's a Duncan Robinson, that's emulating Duncan.
This is the Knicks are the proof, right?
Absolutely right.
How many times? I mean, I've lived near New York.
Absolutely right.
College since 91, and like there has been a savior around the corner. It's got to be close to 100 times since 91. And I guess they were good for a while, like, don't get me wrong, like they had a little run there, but yeah, now I don't know what to make of this. Like, this does feel like a little bit of a different pivot right now, but to me the thing is, like, David, you're saying think long term or at least medium term, and to me, James Dolan's tried that several times. Randy,
I want to quote Randy on this subject, Henry. Randy just said, it's funny what Randy said, it's escape from me. So I'm talking about the Knicks. So Randy texted me the other day, Randy Shane, thoughts on whether it'd be a good idea for the Knicks to sign Van Vliet. So I responded back, sorry, Randy. The sad truth is, until they fix their culture, they are likely to drag everyone down.
Yeah, it's just
theory. I love them.
It's what always happens, right? Like, there's no, it's like which dinner should we serve on the Titanic? It's like, it doesn't matter. It's going down, right? So to me, the thing is, like,
LeBron probably could help. Like, there might be 3 guys in the world in the last 20 years that could even win in New York. But you're talking about lightning striking a lottery winner. Like, that's how rare it would be, right? Lightning striking a lottery winner.
So you're saying think long term. They've hired people who said think long term, including right now. But then James Dolan comes in short term, usually obliterating the cap, right? Usually it's trading young players for expensive players. This is the David Goliath thing. He's hiring Goliath, right? And Goliath is expensive.
Right. Very expensive.
So to me, this is the question. Like, will the Knicks still be in their 5-year plan in 5 years?
Yeah.
Or will they have a new plan that starts next year, 18 months from now, like, which is what keeps happening? Like, that's the question. If James Dolan can just be like Peter Holt and just disappear, or the owners of the Jazz who just, like, they have 1 year meeting a year, then probably this crew in New York will do new and different and better things and keep players long term and Mitchell Robinson, blah blah blah. But if James Dolan's going to be hands on, I doubt he'll change. Right?
They run the Knicks the way Trump runs our government, bravado as a weapon, as if it matters, right?
Yeah.
You can't just talk about the virus disappearing, just like you can't just say, we're going to get this guy and we're going to be great. It's just words. Like none of that matters. Bravado means nothing. It's what are you doing? What is your process? How are you behaving? How are you acting? What are your transactions? All those things matter. And they just keep swinging and missing. Maybe with the new group coming in and run the team, maybe it'll work out fine, but the odds are bad. Nothing else has worked.
Doubtful with Dolan in charge, right?
Yeah, I don't know much about Dolan. I just have read terrible things.
Yeah, it's until he sells the team, which will never happen. Oh, maybe not ever. He puts to someone who has like a ton of money. This is what it's going to be.
Listen, you guys don't care about baseball, which is okay, but the guy that runs the Tampa Bay Rays keeps hiring really, really brilliant people with no budget. We've been great for years. Now we're in the World Series tied 1-1. And guess what? The guy running the Dodgers, one of the richest teams in baseball, he started in Tampa. The guy that won he was the same guy that won with the Cubs. Mm-hmm. So yeah, take this little tiny, we're 14th TV market, whatever, that found ways to win games with no money at all in the American League East with the Red Sox and the Orioles and of course the Yankees. And then you bring them into a big budget. Yeah, they win. Like it's not rocket science there. There's guys that have been forced to figure it out. They just don't hire them. The Knicks don't hire them and let them run their stuff. Our owner lets our guys do their thing. And here we are with brand new management because we lost our guys to the Cubs and the Dodgers. And we're right back to where we've been all along, more or less. Really, really, really well-run team with no money.
The Rays, a good study in what's smart. I mean, we have it here in basketball with the Spurs, right? Like just sustained excellence. And I think we're seeing it with Oklahoma City, right? Like even though I agree. I kill Sam for the Harden deal, they're going to consistently win their 48 to 50 whatever games, and they're going to be in the playoffs, and things break right every year. Or 1 year, they're going to advance far. And I mean, if you're a fan of that, you would take that in a heartbeat over swinging for the fences in New York, and maybe you might get this free agent. And the Knicks fans would trade places with OKC fans in a heartbit.
I remember this when this is a long time ago when the Clippers got Baron Davis.
Yeah.
Kevin Arnovitz and I were newly working together, and he came from Clippers blog. That's where we found him. And I was like, this is never gonna work. Like, you're not winning a championship with Baron Davis, right? And he's like, Henry?
What did he say?
Like when you're not in the game for like 100 years, and then you're just like in the game, like just that's enough.
It is. It's enough.
Yeah.
But that requires a level of competence, right? Like to do that, like to be in the game requires a high level of, and to you guys' point, we don't put enough pressure on ownership, management, like and that side of it. It's always, this player sucks. How about your franchise sucks? How about your structure sucks?
We might be getting what we wanted right now, though, to be honest. Like in this analysis of like how many teams are really contending, I think in a shoddy look at it yesterday, I think that we would rank the Spurs. I think in gambling odds right now, I think the Spurs are 14th in the West to win, and they're not crap, right? Like they're pretty good. They're good. Like so, they're good. This is our well-run team.
They're good with potential.
Yeah. So they're 14th in Vegas odds.
Yeah, the West is who's 15th? The Kings or the Wolves?
Minnesota.
And they have Cat.
Yeah, Minnesota's last in the Vegas odds.
So they have the Kings rated ahead of the Spurs?
I think so. I mean, check me on it.
That's fucked up. That is a bizarro world that I don't live in. Sorry. The Spurs. No, your point is right though, Henry. The Spurs they have a good backcourt. Like they have a great system. Their processes are great. They actually have some good young guys in their G League team. They're going to be fine. They can make a move or two and become like a top 18.
And Legal's about to drop the hammer on you. So have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you, Jarod. Thank you, David. Thank you, Legal.